What up? I'm Mikey Taylor, pro skateboarder, entrepreneur, and real estate investor, and I'm one of the passionate few. Tell you the truth, now interviewing people, I pay a lot more attention to the people interviewing me, and he's good at it, man. It's like, I sometimes think about the next question to ask and forget to listen to what they're saying. But he's felt like he was five questions ahead, but still paying attention to me. It was pretty good. Questions were good. I think him growing up as a skater though, he was kind of able to relate better than maybe some people who aren't. So I thought it was good, man. It was definitely a unique interview in a sense of he understands business and skating, and we covered all.
Welcome to this episode of The Passionate Few. Today we get to sit down and hear the incredible story of professional skateboarder Mikey Taylor. And in this interview, we get to hear not only how Mikey became a professional skateboarder and traveled the world for almost 2 decades with his friends doing what he loved most in life, but also what skateboarding taught him about persistence, determination, relentlessness, and how he translated that into being a serial entrepreneur and now real estate investor with his new fund called Commune Capital, aimed at helping investors set up passive cash flow for life. So in this interview, we get to hear his whole story from a young kid who had a dream to avoid the 9-to-5 by being a pro skater, and how he transitioned it into being a serial entrepreneur and real estate investor who actually had one of the most successful acquisitions in beer recently with his company, St. Archer Brewery, which, as Mikey puts in this interview, sold between $40 and $80 million. And of course, we asked him all about that. So I want to encourage you guys to sit back, relax, and hear this inspiring story of someone who was once a childhood hero of mine, Mikey Taylor. Enjoy. Thanks for being on the show today, Mikey.
Thank you.
Absolutely,
Pleasure.
my man. So a lot of people see what you do online. Obviously, you've been a professional skateboarder for over a decade. But I want to ask you, where did your whole journey begin? Where did you grow up, and sort of where did your skateboarding dreams all begin?
So, dude, my career, I guess, or it all started kind of very innocently. I had a friend who skateboarded, and I wanted to fit in, and so I got a skateboard to kind of feel cool, I guess. And then just kind of did it. It was like I always got into things all in, right? But I could never, I got into bikes, right? And it was all bikes for 3 months, and then I was bored of it. And then it was do something else, all in, completely bored of it. And skating was the first thing where I think because it was so hard that I never got sick of it. It was just the first year obsessed, second year obsessed, and it just became this obsession of trying to figure it out.
How old were you when you got started?
I started when I was 13.
Okay.
So I started when I was 13.
Do you remember the moment that you saw somebody skating and you're like, I gotta get a board, or I gotta go tell my mom I need a board? What was that moment?
Oh yeah. I mean, dude, it was lame, dude. It was like this kid who I hung out with, and
right.
I thought he was cool.
Yeah.
So everything he was into, I wanted to be into.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was seriously oh, you have a skateboard, I'm gonna go get a skateboard.
Yeah.
And went to the skate shop that he bought it at, right? It was
Tried to get
just
the same board or
I was
something.
just on this just full fit in.
Yeah.
And then got a skateboard and just did it because he was doing it.
Was he good at it, or did you see him learning tricks?
He wasn't good at it. That was kind of the thing that changed, right? I started off just wanting to be cool. And then I got so into it, and then he stopped doing it. But I was so kind of obsessed with it that it just kind of changed the path, I think.
And then at what point do you go from starting it at 13 to doing it every day, to where it's an obsession now?
Dude, seriously, I shit you not. I picked it up for the first time, and for 20 years, it was seriously every single day.
Wow. So you just fell in love with it right then and there.
Yeah, I fell in love with it. It just changed, right? When I was young, it was, I think, a natural kind of infatuation or love for it.
Right.
And then as I got sponsored, and especially when you get into things that are where you start doing it as a career,
right,
your passion for it changes, right? It becomes a new thing. And so there was probably a handful of times where it just became something new that I found this new kind of drive and love for.
Right.
But the initial passion, that was the first probably 6 years.
Yeah. And you were skating every day right away at that point?
Every single day.
Hours every day.
Oh, dude. Seriously, when I started, it was I'd get out of school at 2, and from probably 3, it probably started off, I'd skate 3 hours a day unless it got dark. It was from 3 to 7 every single day.
Right.
Up until my senior year is when I got out of school at 12. So then it was I was skating at 12 to 7,
At what point do you start realizing that you're pretty good, or start developing skills to get sponsored and whatnot?
So for me, when I moved into this town that I live in now, it was the first time I was introduced to sponsored skaters, right? I don't know why like this little area had it, but there were like 5 sponsored skaters all in Newbury Park.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 16.
Okay.
Right. And that was the first time I was kind of introduced to it, but I was always the worst, right? Out of my group, everyone was always better than me.
At skating,
right?
yeah.
At skating. And so for me, it was like, it wasn't like, oh, I figured out I was good at it. Like my mom told me I needed to get a job, right? And like, I didn't want to get one.
Right.
So like I came up with this whole plan, like, well, dude, my friends are sponsored. Like, what if I get sponsored and get free stuff, right? And like, why do I need a job? You know, she was like, well, dude, you need to pay for food and gas. And I was like, well, maybe I'll have extra stuff. I could sell it.
Right.
And I think she thought it was like such like this fantasy.
A delusion, yeah.
That she was like, okay, like go try.
Yeah.
And then basically I attempted to and then got sponsored on this like, I don't want to work, so I'm going to do this instead.
Right. But were your skills to the point of like being sponsored at that age?
No,
or like...
I didn't think so. I thought it was just like, you know, like, okay, so for example, like I just filmed this like video part. It took me like 6 months to film this video part. And I sent it out to 40 sponsors and I didn't get one call back. Right?
Not one.
And at that age, like I think my friends, they could have filmed it in like a month. Right. It took me 6 months. No callbacks. They got callbacks from everyone. Right. So then I spent another 6 months and tried to do a better one.
Yeah.
Sent it out to 40 other companies and then got 3 callbacks.
Wow.
Right. So there was a point where I realized like I was pretty good at it, but not on the level of me looking around going, I'm better than everyone. I actually never felt that.
So the dream of you wanting to be a pro didn't start till you were like 16?
No. Even when I got sponsored, I didn't think I was going to be pro.
So it was just to get sponsored. It was never to go pro or be this big time.
No, I wanted to get sponsored. I didn't want to work at a young age, right? I was like, dude, I'm
yeah.
16. Like, I don't want to work. Like, I still want to skate. It was that, like, kind of innocent, right? And then when I graduated, or when I was about to graduate, then my parents were like, look, you need to go to school, right? And then that's where, like, it kind of started changing of, like, well, I'm getting the opportunity to travel. Like, maybe I can be pro at it.
Right.
But like, it wasn't like this mastermind, right? Like if you ask Paul at 13 years old.
It was Paul Rodriguez, the 10-time signature Nike SB pro skater.
One of my closest friends. We grew up skating together, right? And when we were young, he'd be 13 and tell me, I'm going to be the best pro skateboarder ever live, right? He knew at a young age, this is what I'm doing, right? And you can tell, like, even when we were skating, like, I was just having fun. Paul was like practicing and disciplined to be the best, right? For me, it was just like a shit just happened.
I'm just having fun. Yeah.
Like, I think for me, it was more like I had so much fun doing it that I didn't want to let go of how much I enjoyed it. And to me, like pro skateboarding, like if I'm being honest, that was the solution to it in my eyes, was if I get sponsored, then I get paid to do this, then shit, I could still do it, you know?
So do you find that most pros, when they were trying to go pro, like it was their intention or it just kind of happened? I mean, what's your pulse on it being in the industry?
I think most people want to turn pro, especially now. Then it was a little different because like there weren't a lot of pros and you didn't really make a lot of money doing it, right? So like there was a part of me that like I wanted to keep skating, but like I always thought I was going to stop skating and go back to school, right? Like, like the idea of you having like a real career back then was pretty, it wasn't a reality.
Right.
So like it kind of felt like for you to be, like if you were going to step away and be a pro skateboarder, you were going to be letting go of like some type of success or potential by doing that.
Gotcha,
right?
yeah.
Where nowadays everybody thinks you just be rich and famous skateboarding, right? So I think it's a little different. I think kids now are like, I want to be pro. I want to drive a Mercedes. I want to have, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then at what point do you start sort of traveling the world and start living this dream that you would have never even anticipated? Like, how old are you there?
So I graduated when I was 18. By 19, I started traveling. But not, dude, I was making $500 a month, right? I wasn't making money, but like I went to Italy, I went to Germany. I was like starting to like kind of see the world and never had done that before.
And they were paying like a per diem?
They'd pay for the trip, right? They'd pay for all my travel. They'd give us money to eat. It was just like my monthly salary was not a lot, right?
Yeah.
And then that
so
was 19.
So you're kind of living the dream, but like not really.
I was living, I mean, yeah, from like, I think like I'm living the dream, I'm rich.
Right,
no, not doing that. But for like a 19-year-old who like wants to skate and is getting to skate in kind of in Spain and Italy, like, dude, yeah, I was like living the dream on that sense.
That's rad. Right? And do you feel like your skills were like on par to that? Because, I mean, for all the people out there, like skateboarders in particular, like I know a lot of them are consciously trying to go pro, consciously trying to get their skills at that level. That's really interesting that it kind of just haphazardly happened for you. What do you think was different about your approach to skating that allowed you to kind of succeed or get that momentum?
Dude, in the beginning, like especially like getting sponsored, it was even though maybe pro skateboarding wasn't like my initial idea, I was so obsessed with continuing to be able to skate that I think it translated into me being able to get sponsored, where maybe
Gotcha.
somebody wouldn't have gone through that type of work to get that done, right? Once I turned pro, it was different, right? I just think leading up to it, I didn't have this like grand plan to be pro. When I turned pro, then it became, how do I become the biggest pro? How do I get out to as many people as I
Gotcha.
can?
Yeah,
That's when it kind of just shifted. And where I like kind of was saying, like I fell in love with a new kind of aspect of skating.
Gotcha, that
Right.
makes sense. And then you've been a pro for what, almost 2 decades, correct?
Yeah, dude.
That's crazy.
Almost like 17 years, like 16 years.
Wild.
Yeah.
And then obviously you sort of earned your way up. I know you said you were making $500 a month, and it moved up to 6 figures, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, it did eventually. I mean, it wasn't that long. Yeah, probably. I had 2 years of making not that much money.
Yeah.
And then I think by like 21, I was probably making over 6 figures. Not well over it.
Right.
Just barely over it.
Yeah. And then you start sort of, is that when you get more into the entrepreneurial space, investing?
Well, I started getting into investing. No entrepreneurial. The entrepreneurial side, I didn't know it was there at this point, right? For me, it was like it was kind of went back to like feeling like I was going to be giving up on what my life kind of could be as far as like a stability standpoint, right?
Yeah.
And so that was always a concern for me. Like it scared me that like I could do something and be so passionate about it and then like it be over at somewhere between 30 and 35. Like I didn't know what that kind of transition was going to look like, and I was really scared of what it was going to be.
Right, because a lot of people might not know this from the outside, but professional skateboarders, there's a window on your body, right? So what's that average window for most people, right? It's almost like 20 to 30.
So
would
if
be
you
the peak.
don't get hurt,
Right.
like let's say like you have a perfect career, you have no injuries, and a sponsor wants to continue sponsoring you for whatever reason, if you make it into your 30s, that was a pretty solid run.
Right, yeah.
Right? So it's like really like we used to look at it as like you have a 10-year run, you're stoked, right? I think the careers are even getting smaller now, or they're not going as long.
Right.
But back then my goal was to go 10 years. And at that point I was like, dude, it's gnarly to like get into the workforce or into your career in your 30s and not doing anything leading up to that to help get into that transition, right?
Right.
Like me doing tricks on a skateboard does not mean I go to get a job at,
Right, yeah.
Oppenheimer, whatever, you know?
And you're used to having freedom, traveling the world with your friends, like challenging yourself physically. It's a very different sort of skill set than actually being professional and holding focus.
Yeah, so as far as the investing, kind of back to your initial question, the investing happened to me because I looked and went, this could be the most money I'm going to make, right? Is in this kind of professional run.
Right.
So if I can basically build as much passive income as I possibly can,
Right.
then maybe when I lose my sponsors, like shit, maybe I don't need to do anything.
Yeah,
that
you'll
was
have
like my
cash flow
initial
taken
that
care
was
of
my
you.
initial idea. So like the investing was, I started investing seriously right when I started making money. Not the $500, right when I
Right.
turned pro
Yeah.
and had a little bit of money,
Yeah.
I started investing. The entrepreneur stuff didn't come till closer to my late 20s.
And it started with residential real estate, or what did you start focusing on initially?
No, it started with, well, I guess technically I bought a house, which to this day was one of the worst investments I've ever been a part of. But I started investing in storage units when this was 19 turning 20, right when I turned pro. That first year, that's where a good chunk of my money went.
And did you have advisors sort of in your ear? Or
Yeah.
what would you recommend to people out there who maybe are starting to make good money and they kind of are not very familiar with real estate? What did you find actually ended up paying off well now that you did then?
So I was very fortunate in a sense of my dad, he was not like not a super wealthy guy, not a poor guy, just
Right.
really good with his money, and had like a really, I think, healthy understanding of what money was. And so not only was I able to see that as I was growing up, right when I started making money, he was like, okay, these are the guys I have to help me manage my finances, investing, everything, right? So he walked me into their office when I was 18. This is when I was making money, right? And these guys are like, I didn't even make enough to be in the room.
Right.
And and I didn't know why they took me on. I thought it was like because of my dad.
Right.
Right? And they basically told me, this was like only a year ago. I was like, dude, why did you take me on back then? Because they were a huge reason why I was investing in real estate.
Right.
And truthfully, why I'm even here now.
And you still work with those same advisors?
I'm still with them now.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They played such a massive role in kind of why my path, I think, was as upward as it was.
What's the name of their company or organization?
Their company's AFG. It's a
AFG.
Liens Financial Group.
Gotcha.
And dude, I asked him, like, dude, this was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, why did you take me on as like an 18-year-old kid making it was actually $800 a month, making $800 a month, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, dude, honestly, man, like, we had never talked to a pro skateboarder before, right? Let alone an 18-year-old kid. And we asked you who was doing your deals. Right. Right. And it was a small deal. Dude was making $800 a month. Right. Yeah. And barely a deal. And I was like, I did. Yeah. And they're like, what do you mean you did? Yeah. I'm like, I did the deal. And they were like, well, don't you think like somebody could get you more? Yeah. And I don't even remember saying this, like cocky little 18-year-old kid. I was like, why am I going to give a percentage of the money I'm going to make to somebody who's going to negotiate a deal worse than I can negotiate it, right? And they were like, we're going to take this kid on, see what happens, right? And then like fast forward, it was like them, like I started making money. Right. And they, because I was so unique in a sense of being a pro skateboarder and having a short career, right. When we put together kind of my plan, it was real customized to kind of me.
And your time window.
And my time window, and it forced me to be a part of the process, which is, I think, why I learned so much, was kind of being hands-on with them. Right. And they've been a part of, not only have I been working with them to this point, they're my business partners now in Commune. Like, they helped us set up St. Archer. They helped us with the they've been like so influential in kind of my life.
And Commune Capital that you just brought up, can you talk a little bit about what that is for people that might not know?
Yeah, so Commune Capital is a real estate fund, and we are building passive income for, it's not specific to athletes, but because this process was so, such a pain point for me, and I felt like I spent so much time trying to crack it, a lot of my friends don't do that. Right. And so I wanted to create an opportunity for them, kind of off your last question, instead of like me telling them, hey, you need to go find this guy and you need to do this. I wanted to create something where I went, hey guys, I'm going to create it for you. In-house. I got you guys. Just your money comes in. I pay you every quarter. Let's get you to financial freedom, or let's allow this transition to be as smooth as possible. And that's kind of where Commune came from. And it was with the guys who helped me do that the last kind of 15 years. Feels real special for me just because I thought about this problem for so long.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then let's go back a little bit to during your skate career, right? I think there was a point where you were writing for some of the biggest sponsors in the industry, right? For people that don't know, big brands in skateboarding like Alien Workshop. I know you were on DBS shoes for a while, and then later in your career, DC shoes. Can you talk a little bit about the transition from professional skateboarding to sort of where you're at now, moving into the entrepreneurial space, sort of what that transition was like?
Yeah. So there's a part of skateboarding that like is so selfish, right? Right. It's all about me. Right. Right. It's the tricks I want to do. It's how I want it filmed.
My photo, my clip, my part.
Right. And I think it attracts this, not only this kind of obsessive personality, but like, I think it attracts entrepreneurs, even with us not even knowing. Right. And so kind of going through that for so long, I got to a point where it's like I couldn't ever picture doing something based off someone else's idea. It was always my idea, right? It was always like, I have an idea, I'm gonna go do this, I wanna do, it was all like my vision and me executing it. So like one, I didn't ever feel like I could just go work for somebody. Right. And then two, like it was really when I started dealing with signature product. And I was involved in designing it, involved in the marketing campaign, involved in seeing how marketing translated into sales.
So signature board, signature clothing, signature shoes.
Totally. And that to me is when like I really tasted it and went, I want this.
Right, yeah.
And then it was like, dude, I started working with like designers and I started working with developers, and I struggled with it to the point of like, I was really just immature and didn't know how to deal with people. But I took it as, you know what, dude, I'm not listening to anybody. I'm gonna do my own thing, right? And it was like like childish thought that like spawned me kind of heading down that kind of path.
Gotcha, that makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about what happened with DC? I know there was a little bit of drama towards the end of your contract. Can you talk a little bit about how that transition sort of forced a certain situation in your career?
Yeah, so So basically, a pro skateboarder, like we talk about the lifespan of our career, right? Not knowing how long it is.
Right.
When we get a contract, it's like, I'm good for 3 years.
Right, yeah,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know you have 3 years. And then when you do, I know I have 4 years. And that's the only thing we could base any type of like future plan off of, right?
Yeah.
And that was the case for DC. I had a 3-year deal. And especially at the age I was at, I was like, dude, when I signed the deal, I was 31.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, this deal is going to put me into, I think it was a 4-year deal. It's going to put me into 34, 35.
Mm-hmm.
I have that time. And then
Right.
I'm going to have to just fully step out is what I
Right.
thought, right? And so basically they found a loophole in the deal that allowed them to terminate early
Mm-hmm.
and fucked up my whole time frame, right?
Yeah,
But like, you know, I got till I'm 36 turned into like, I'm 33 and I'm done.
Got nothing.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So it was just hard. It was
Mm.
like I'm very planned out with
Right.
everything I do.
Right.
And it put me in such an uncomfortable place going, wait, this isn't what it's supposed to be. Right? Like I'm supposed to like have 2 more years. I'm supposed to, you know.
Right,
It was
yeah.
tough, but it was
And after doing it for so long, you know, all you know is having a full skate career like that.
Yeah.
Now, talk to me a little bit about the transition, because I know you had shoes on there, right? Signature products that were doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me a little bit about what it was like after realizing that the contract was terminated and now you have to go figure out what the hell to do with your life. Like, what was that like?
So, dude, for me, it was like I spent so much time figuring out the financial side, right? How do I survive if I lose my sponsors financially?
Right. And for those that don't know, shoe sponsors are some of the biggest sponsors in skateboarding,
It's the
right?
biggest sponsor.
The biggest.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
basically from what you're paid, shoes is the biggest. Then it would be followed by clothes, but now actually shoes and clothes are together. Then it's basically drink sponsor. And then those are pretty much it as far as like
dominant
anything significant, right?
Gotcha,
Boards, you
yeah.
don't make anything with boards anymore.
Gotcha, yeah.
So for me, losing DC was all of my income as a pro skateboarder. And like drink sponsors, like I never took drink sponsors,
Right.
like the energy drinks.
Yeah.
But like Villager, like I'm not paid by Villager.
Right,
Villager's
yeah.
like, we all put our own money in to do it.
Right.
St. Archer, we didn't pay any guys. It was
Yeah.
all our money into it, right?
And
so
for
it's
those
like,
that don't know, that Villager is your guys' water company,
Mm-hmm.
and St. Archer was the beer company you guys created. And we'll get into that a little bit, but go on.
yeah, so basically like I lost all my income and and because I've been basically working at setting myself up to be okay during
Right, yeah.
this shit. What I didn't plan for is like what I truly wanted to do, right? Like, and kind of going back to St. Archer, we didn't think we were going to sell St. Archer this quick, right? And like for Josh and I, like I'd be on the phone with Josh all the time.
And Josh is the co-founder of St. Archer
Yeah,
with you.
and
the
was the
beer
CEO.
company, the
Yeah.
CEO.
And Josh was, I mean, not only is he kind of like my closest friend, he's kind of like big brother mentor in a way,
Gotcha,
right?
yeah.
And dude, I'd spend so much time on the phone with him and he'd go, dude, you're done with skating. Step away. Let's do this. You're moving to San Diego. Let's do, like, it was always like,
go
I was
all
going
in
to
on the
step
beer
away
company.
from, yeah. And that was kind of my plan. And when we sold St. Archer, like it was such a blessing, but like kind of put me in a place of going, I don't know what I'm going to do.
How long did you guys take from building St. Archer from scratch to the acquisition, which was with Coors Miller Lite, right?
With Miller Coors, yeah. So basically I think like from the point of Josh and Paul and I driving around to other breweries trying to figure out what we're doing,
Right.
that was 2011. We opened doors in 2012 and then we sold it in 2015.
Wow.
It was fast, dude. It was
Yeah.
really fast. So like it was like great. Like that really helped kind of this transition.
Right.
But like for me, it was like the hardest part was not knowing what to do by far. Like I was like financially, I was in a place where I was like, I was okay. Dude, I haven't made money, seriously, from an income standpoint
Yeah.
in a year and a half.
Yeah.
I haven't made a fucking dollar.
And then you
skateboarding.
had that big acquisition happen just like
That was before, this was like, I'm saying for the last year and a half, I haven't made any money.
Oh, for now.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like the hard part for me wasn't the like, I have to go figure out how to make money.
Right.
It was, what am I going to do?
Right, yeah.
Like I just spent so much of my time doing this. Then we build this company and then it's gone,
Yeah.
right? Like what the hell am I gonna do? And that was
Right.
by far the hardest thing for me to do was figure out what I wanted to do. I played around with so many ideas and it was tough.
That's really interesting because I think a lot of people from the outside looking in might see you and go, oh, you know, you've had your hand in building a multi-million-dollar business, you've traveled the world, you've lived your dream as a pro skateboarder, but yet you could relate to a lot of the audience in that they might be figuring out like, shit, what do I do with my life? Or how do I
Dude.
find my purpose?
I can relate to it so much.
Yeah.
That was the thing I always hated, even from a young age, like having to think, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? I hated that because I didn't ever have in my eyes this like clear vision like Paul did.
Right, yeah.
Right? Like I wasn't the 13-year-old that went, I'm gonna be a pro skateboarder and I'm gonna be the best. Right? I didn't have that. Like I was just like, this shit's tight.
Yeah.
You know? And then like even with like St. Archer, like it wasn't like I was sitting back going, dude, I'm gonna create this like huge brewery with these skaters, right? It was like Josh in a room with me, and Josh was like, dude, why don't we do beer? Like it's always like
Wasn't it like in a hotel or something?
Yeah.
You guys were saying, like, can you talk a little bit about the story of how you guys came up with the idea?
Yeah, so basically like Josh was making films, surf films.
Right.
And he wanted to make a skate film. And like he was like hitting me up constantly to do it. And I kept blowing him off. Like I don't want to do a skate film from like with a surfer creating it, right? Yeah. And finally he like locked me down. I was like, you're coming, right? And I hadn't spent any time with him. And that was basically, we met that morning, drove from here out to San Diego. And from that like 3-hour drive, we kind of just like hit it off. Like we just like became like best friends like in a 3-hour window.
Right.
And then when we got out there, I got a call from Mike Mo. He's like, yo, I just got this crazy idea. Another pro skateboarder.
Yeah.
He's like, I just got this crazy idea. Let's do sunglasses. Like we came up with this name, Glassy. It's gonna be tight, right?
Yeah.
He's like, do you want to do it? And I was like, dude, I'm in the middle of filming this video. I'll call you back. So I hang up the phone.
Yeah.
And I told Josh, like we had just been talking for 3 hours. I'm like, yo, what do you think about sunglasses?
Yeah.
Right? And he was like, I mean, yeah, it's cool. Like sunglasses are cool, but like everyone does sunglasses.
It's played out.
Yeah, like let's do something like no, he didn't even say this. He didn't say let's do something cool. He was like, it'd be cool to do something like unique or like hadn't been done in our spot. And so I was like, yeah, it would. And then like we kind of just talked. Went into our hotel room that night, and like we just talking. We turn off the lights to go to sleep. I'm seriously laying in the bed. It's been like 2 minutes, and he goes, like beer, like dude, no one's done beer. And I just turn on the light. I'm like, what? Beer? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, we should do beer. Yeah. And we drove home that next morning, completely aborted the film trip, called Paul on the way home, sat in front of a Starbucks, kind of like told him about this like crazy idea.
Right.
And that was essentially the birth of it.
Wow. How'd you guys come up with the name St. Archer?
Honestly?
Yeah.
Paul and Josh and I basically wrote down all these names on a piece of paper. He had, like Josh's job was to do 20 names, mine was 20 names, Paul's was 20 names, and somebody had Archer. It might have been Josh. Somebody had Archer. Right. And they're like, dude, Archer's sick. And then somebody, I can't remember who it was, somebody's like, dude, what about St. Archer? Yeah. And there was no like meaning behind it. Yeah. It was just us trying to figure out a cool name.
Just an epic name.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then, so after that acquisition, what's it like? Because obviously you had to get investors involved in the mix, and that was its own sort of challenge. Mm-hmm. But what's it like the day after putting all this time, all this effort, where you get the call that, hey, they want to acquire you, a company like Coors Miller? Like, what's flowing through your mind when you hear that you're going to probably get one of the biggest checks of your entire life?
So Josh, he was a filmmaker. Right. He then became a manager, and Josh negotiated Sean's first deal at Nike.
Which is Sean Malto, another professional skateboarder.
And Josh has this gift to just make somebody sound awesome, right? He's so good at like creating the vision through him speaking, right?
Right.
And we had like 4 companies that were interested in buying us. And so like, dude, honestly, man, I was like, oh my God, put Josh in front of these guys and we're going to get the highest valuation ever, right?
We'll be free for life.
And that's basically what happened. Josh did his thing. And like, dude, there's no way we would have gotten that amount if it weren't for Josh. He has a gift at doing it. It's insane.
What's the ballpark amount for people out there that might want to?
Ballpark's above 40, below 80.
Gotcha.
Somewhere in that zone.
Somewhere in that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I think if it was like, if Josh wasn't in this picture, right, and it was like Paul and I and up to us to negotiate, dude, it would have been seriously 15. Josh is just, he's gifted, man. Yeah. He's really good at that.
So then after that, obviously you pay back the investors, everybody's stoked. Now you have money in the bank, but now you're like, well, shit, what do I do next? Yeah. Success without fulfillment.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And for me, it wasn't over, right? Like like I couldn't sit on this lump sum and go, okay, cool. Like I'm just going to pay myself. It'll start getting smaller, but it's so much, who cares? I'm done, right? I had to do like the same shit I'd been doing. Just I had more to do it with. Is
there a different feeling when you put that money in your bank account and you're looking at it? I mean, what's that feel like?
It's surreal. Yeah. But like, scary, actually. It wasn't the feeling I thought it was going to be. Like, I called Paul the next day. I'm like, yo, what's up? How you feeling? And Paul's like, dude, I'm like scared. I'm like, dude, I kind of feel crazy too. You know, and basically what happens is you see more money now and you're like, holy shit, I have enough to do something now, but like, I better not blow it, right? Like the
fear of losing
the fear of losing becomes one, way greater when you don't really have that much to lose.
Right.
And two, everyone thinks you have more than you do. You're richer than you are, right? You're held to this different kind of standard and this whole new pressure.
Right. Yeah.
So it was, dude. There was a moment where all of us had to get used to it. It was definitely strange, especially coming from skateboarding.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like skaters don't make millions, right?
Yeah. What's an average range of what pro skateboarders make?
The majority of pro skateboarders make under $100,000. The majority.
Right.
There's 10% that make, I don't know, over 200.
Right.
Maybe 2 guys that make over $1 million.
Gotcha.
So it's the majority's low.
Right.
Still.
Yeah. And it's not a big window, so they do have to figure something out.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, dude, I was making, so I was part of that 10%, but on the lower end of the 10%, right? Gotcha. And like, if you compared the amount of money I was making to anyone else, I was making good money.
Right, yeah.
But then when you gauge, like, I have a 12-year career as opposed to a 30-year career.
That money has to stretch out.
Exactly, and that's why I think that's why I never lived off the amount I was making, right? Like, I was always so worried about kind of what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Where I was like, dude, I don't care if I make 300, I'm living off 70. You know, because like I had to figure out what to do next. I didn't want to like live this like rad life and then have to get used to downsizing. That seems so shitty to me.
Right.
And
it's really interesting because as we sit here in the home that you've lived in for what, over a decade? You said almost 14 years?
Yeah, I was 22.
Wow. So when it comes to that major acquisition, money's in the bank, was there any crazy purchases or any kind of like?
Yeah, no, nothing.
Really?
Yeah. I bought a Tesla last year.
Yeah.
And I bought a used 2014 Tesla.
Any temptations too, or not really?
No,
You're
tell you
focused
the
on
truth,
the long-term vision.
Yeah, I've never been like huge on material stuff.
Right.
Like the things I really like doing is like figuring out how to make more money, not buying things. Like it's I'm more obsessed with like how to hit a certain return or like investing in a startup that like that's the shit I like spending money on.
Yeah. You like making money more than you like spending it.
Yeah, I'm like not huge on spending it. To me, like I like experience, right? Like, dude, I'll never look. I shouldn't say that. I wouldn't trip on like going out and eating like great dinner that's like expensive.
Right.
Good on that, right? Yeah. Like buying a $1,000 fucking jacket.
Yeah.
Can't do.
Not gonna happen.
No.
Yeah.
Like it's like the real like material stuff I'm not into.
And as a pro skateboarder, you're probably used to having experiences that matter too. So you're more in touch with experience. Yeah. Makes sense. So now let's get into how you got out of that funk you were in and finding your purpose and finding a little bit more clarity. I think a lot of the audience can get some clarity from that. So tell us a little bit of that.
So that moment or that time frame was probably 6 months, right? Worst 6 months of my whole life. I swear it was the worst, not knowing what to do.
And this was after the acquisition still?
Dude, this was years. This was seriously, God, how long ago was it? This was a year and a half ago.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
This was not that long ago.
Yeah.
Worst 6 months of my life. And dude, I have a family. I am not making any money and I'm okay, right? Like there's so many wonderful things about my life. Hardest 6 months of my life. Terrifying. The most, and I didn't hit a depression, but like as far as like self-esteem, purpose, all of it. In the fucking gut. It was gnarly, right?
Yeah.
And it was all because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And for me, it's like, it's not so much like feeling purpose, but it's more like having sights on what I want to do and then being able to see the path to be able to get there. And I didn't have it and it was terrifying.
Like you didn't have any clarity as to the train tracks even, right?
No, nothing. I was like, I'm going to do a shoe brand. I'm going to do this like online thing. I'm going to do this like water. I'm going to do a coffee. It was like throwing out so many different ideas and there was no real meaning behind them. It was tough, dude. It was really hard for me. And it was a phone call that changed that. I got a call from Sean Malto. And he was like calling to check in. Right? He's like, yo, what's up, dude? Like, how is everything? Like what's it like on the other side? Right?
Yeah.
And we're also
in retirement, in pro skater retirement.
Yeah, we're all so scared of it. He was like, dude, how are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
And I kind of told him, I was like, dude, it's tough, man. Like this is like gnarly.
Yeah.
You know? And he was like, yeah, but like, are you good?
Yeah.
He's like, is your money good?
Yeah.
And I was like, kind of said something. I'm like, yeah. I'm like financially I'm okay, but like, dude, this is fucking gnarly, right? And he was like, well, dude, like that's like unreal. Like I hope I'm in that position that you're in when I retire, right? And it was that phone call that basically left me with this like very shitty feeling, right? And I was like, okay, most of my friends are gonna have a very painful exit out of skateboarding, right? More so than I'm having, and this is already the hardest thing I've ever done, right? And it just kind of made me think like, most of them aren't gonna plan for it.
Right.
So like, why doesn't this, like, how can I figure out a way to help them through it? And like the thing that I've spent so much time on learning and doing and feeling,
Right.
I can help create that for them because I kind of had figured it out in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And then that thought is what kind of led to, well, why am I in a position to be here right now? Why did when I lost my sponsors, I was okay? And what were the things I did? And real estate really was a massive reason why I was able to do it, right? Even like, dude, we sold St. Archer. I made a ton of money.
Right.
I still put so much of it back into real estate because I needed passive. I needed to make enough money while I didn't do anything to be greater than my expenses, right? Even with a fucking lump sum of money, still had to follow the same model. Right? So it was kind of that thought process that led to, well, I did real estate, I did it with these guys. How do I create something for these skaters? Which led into basically Commune now.
And how big is Commune Capital, just so people can get a scope of size?
So basically, so Commune Capital, we just started the new fund.
Gotcha.
For my partners, this is their third fund now. Their last two funds are, I wouldn't say relatively big in the commercial real estate space. Like for me, they're fucking psycho. Like anything over $100 million, you're like, dude, you're unreal. Right? So this is the third fund. We close on our first property in the new fund tomorrow.
Wow, nice.
The new property, it's about a $9 million project.
Congrats, that's awesome,
thank
man.
you.
Yeah.
So so it's brand new.
Nice, man, very cool. And then your personal portfolio in real estate, what are you finding is the most crucial for you moving forward? I mean, obviously probably not residential real estate. I know a lot of public storage.
Yeah.
What are you finding is, some of the best things out there on the market for you?
So the things I like storage, I like multifamily, and I really like mixed use, where retail on the bottom, living up top.
Right.
I really like that. I would say those are the three things that I'm not only passionate about, I would spend time investing in. There's other things that do it. I just haven't spent the time. Retirement homes, I heard, are really, really good.
Right.
I don't know them. Mobile homes, all those kind of, I just don't have the experience or understanding in.
Gotcha.
But those are the three I do. I don't do residential.
And then there's assisted living homes. I'm sure you've heard of those.
Assisted living homes. Dude, Airbnbs. There's so many ways to skin the cat.
Yeah.
Those are the three we focus in, though.
Nice, very cool. And then moving forward, what's your best advice to people out there who maybe are making money or maybe looking to get into real estate? What would be your best advice to early investors as to maybe what they should keep their eyes open for or where they should put their funds?
So there's basically two ways to do it, right? You can either do it yourself,
right,
or you can invest into people doing it, right? And I think like that is really specific to who you are, right? For me, I was skating and I loved everything about it, and I wasn't in a position where like maybe somebody working a job they hate, right? Where they're like, dude, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
I want to get to like financial freedom. Maybe for that guy, he'd probably be a better fit to just be a real estate investor personally and him go in and actually do all this stuff.
Right.
Dude, the way I learned, like everything's separate from like my guys. Dude, Bigger Pockets is actually phenomenal for learning how to get into real estate.
Bigger Pockets podcast?
They have a podcast on their site. There's message boards. There's a lot of good resources to get in. There's a company, Think Multifamily, great for wanting to learn how to basically analyze deals. If you need to raise money, how to do it, areas you should be targeting. I would say if I were to get into it now and wanted to do it, I'd go there.
And Grant talks a lot about those too, yeah.
Yeah, they're great. They're seriously, I know Mark, who does Think Multifamily, I know really well.
Right.
Great guy. There's a lot of guys who are like, will partner with you
right,
and kind of be this like guru. that could be scary, right?
Right, yeah.
Mark, though, has a really cool concept. He basically has a course that you can take, learn how to do it, and then when you find deals, he then partners with you as far as the investment, brings his capital in, and then basically helps you get through your first project. It's a great model. I would say if you want to get in, that's a great avenue. For somebody who's like needs passive income and loves what they're doing, that's a little different play. And that's actually a little harder to find people to do it with, right? That's one of the reasons why I'm doing it. And prior to me, I was investing into Randy and Jerry, who are now my partners, and they had a fund that they were doing, right? Grant has a fund. There's people out there that have funds. That is just it just depends.
And would you say that that's your sort of newfound passion or vision? I mean, is that sort of what you're locked in on the long term, or how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, this is like, dude, I think about this from the second I wake up to the second I go to sleep.
What's your vision for Commune overall?
So basically what I want from Commune is, there's two parts of it, but like right now I can only take accredited investors, right? Which makes it hard because not everybody makes 200 grand a year. Right? Especially skaters. So I don't have a ton of skaters, 10 in an industry of 200, right? So one, I'm going to get to the point where I can do this for everyone because I do like the fact that like the little guy, it seems like the little guy never knows the bigger guy to get him that same deal, right? It's all about deal flow, and they just feel like it kind of gets passed up on them.
There's nobody to push the ladder down.
I'd love to create something for basically everyone to be a part of, and I want it to be cool, dude. Like there's so much stuff out there that's just like based on numbers, and there's no like feeling or like brand or identity or like reason or nothing, right? So it's like, for me, not only am I so passionate about why I'm doing this, because like I don't want these like creative people to like make such a big impact and then just like be thrown out into like obscurity, right? So it's like I do want to solve that for them, but like, dude, our group of investors are like kind of like, it's a cool group, right? It's like we're doing like, instead of like the fucking quarterly message
dividends,
not dividends, like your email blast, like reports, right? Just like kind of up to date. Like, dude, when we do our meetings, it's like they're events. It's like mastermind meets real estate fund, right? Like I'm creating a place that like I want people to have a feeling of like that they need to that they would pay to be involved in this,
right? But
like they don't. Like I actually pay them to be involved. Like I want to create this like very special and unique kind of community in our fund.
And it's accredited investors only, correct?
Right now it is.
And is the vision to kind of open that up later?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd say sooner than later. I would actually say probably this year.
Nice. I love that. Now going back, and I do want to touch on this. So when it comes to your parents who early on sort of doubted you and kind of said okay with the skate thing, what do they say now looking back?
Man, I think my parents trip on me, dude. For real. Like, it started off, they didn't think I could be a pro skateboarder, right? They were terrified about me being a pro skateboarder. And I think it's because they had a vision, especially me being a parent now. You have an idea of what your kid could be, right? And whenever they make decisions that you feel is going to hold them back, it's frightening, right? I can relate to them on that point. But once I like started basically being a pro skateboarder and then having success with it, then they were like, dude, this is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
like,
we
people
love Mikey showing the magazines and covers.
And then it was like, I think like with St. Archer, they were like, okay, like this is crazy. Like you and Paul and Josh have no idea like about beer, a filmmaker and two skaters. They were tripping, right? But they wanted to support me.
Of course.
And then like that thing like went well.
Yeah.
And then like even like my mom told me the other day, she's like, I listened to your podcast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right? And then she's like, it's very interesting. Like who would have known? Like, you know what I'm saying? I think like I trip them out sometimes.
That's crazy. And I know too that your pops would even like be supportive enough to where sponsors would call when you were sending out all those videos, that he would be like, man, so many people have been calling for Mikey. Can you talk a little bit about how supportive your pops was?
Yeah, he hooked me up, man. So like, so basically I sent those 40 tapes out and didn't get any callbacks, right? And then I sent another 40 tapes out. And the first guy who called was Justin Williams. He did Venture.
venture skateboard trucks.
Yeah. And my dad answered the phone. I wasn't home.
Yeah.
Right. And basically said, he's like, oh yeah, are you calling for Mikey about this like skateboarding thing?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I am. And my dad's like, gosh, man, like there's a lot of you guys calling, right? He was the first person to call.
Right.
And so I remember I talked to Justin. He was like, dude, so how many people are calling you? And I'm like, oh, dude, I just got home. I don't know. And he goes, oh, sure. And I was like, what the hell's going on? I'm like, Dad, what did you say? And he's like, nothing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know?
That's
so
awesome,
my dad's, not even just my dad. My parents are very supportive. I think they were just concerned when I first started doing it, but they've always been supportive.
And then I know he was supportive enough too to get you into the money stuff in financial management. I want to ask, what's your best advice to people who are making money, you know, saving 10%, investing 20%? I mean, what are the numbers that you found sort of worked for you, even though you were on a unique window with skating, that you can kind of maybe share with others on how they should organize their funds?
Okay, so for me and how I've done it, I invest two different ways. The majority of my money, I basically try and find opportunities that will hit, dude, honestly, between 8 and 10% is like what I want to hit.
Annual returns.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And the majority of my money is looking for that, right? And then I have about 10% allocated to fucking wild shit where I could hit a home run.
Right.
But I could lose it too.
Right.
Right? And that would be like a St. Archer or a Villager or what else did I just kind of like cool things, right? And I would say on the majority of my money where I'm looking for an 8 and 10%, the majority of it is real estate. You can do it in the stock market. I don't understand the stock market enough and don't follow it enough to know what companies are doing what. It's just out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of unique in a sense of like, because I had the guys I had, I was introduced to different opportunity that I think if I was on my own, I don't know if I would have the same. I actually might be like, tell you the truth, the wrong guy to ask for this, because for the majority of the stuff I'm doing, I'm investing in myself.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where like I'm not, I might be the wrong person to ask for that.
What about the moment going back to where you said that you were kind of in that funk for 6 months, hardest 6 months of your life? What was the moment where you're like, it's real estate? Or was it more of a gradual sort of tick?
Yeah, so basically, when Sean had that conversation with me, it was the next day I got reunited with an old family friend, right? And her sister moved next door. And she was over here to see her sister, and she saw my wife and was sitting back here.
Yeah.
I have this call with Sean Malto. I see her, and she was a ballerina, right? Pro ballerina, professional ballerina.
Nice.
And I hadn't seen her, and I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm a real estate investor. I'm like, yeah, right. Like, I want to hear about it, right?
Yeah.
And so I sit down, and she had a duplex in LA, rehabbed it, got into a quad, sold it, got into a 6 unit, got herself into a 10 unit. She's like telling me this process over the last 8 years, right? And I'm like so into I'm like, I love this. Like, I love that you're doing this, right? And then I think it was that conversation with her wanting to get to the next level, this conversation with Sean to where it was like, dude,
perfect storm.
This real estate is why I was able to get in this position, getting connected with her. And she's like, dude, she's an entrepreneur. Like, she's like, it's really cool what she was doing, got connected or kind of had this idea, brought it to the guys who I'd been investing with. They loved it. And it was just like, we all kind of got together to kind of create it.
And instantly you knew like, this is it.
I instantly knew it's what I was going to do.
Right.
It took me time to map out what it was going to be though. You know,
but it did erode that sort of negative energy that you were harboring.
Seriously, the second I was like, I'm going to do real estate, all of that gone.
So what would be your best advice to people who are trying to find their own thing if they're in their funk? Because I think a common denominator with people we interview, as simple as it sounds, is experience. Like if you're feeling lost or you're feeling stuck, go talk to people that are doing something interesting. Like just going back to skating when you were a kid, you didn't sit there and think like, what am I passionate about? What's my thing? You went out and experienced things. You followed your curiosities. You interacted with them. So what would be your best advice to somebody who's out there in their own funk on how to get out and find their clarity or their purpose?
So for me, it's always happened because of a conversation with someone else or like this, like got a call from Sean and then saw Fia, or even like me being a pro skateboarder. I saw a kid and just thought I wanted to be cool, right?
And tried it, yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'm not the person that's gonna sit here and lock myself in the room for 6 months and go, what am I gonna be, right?
Right,
like,
yeah.
I'm a big believer of like, dude, just go get out there with an open mind and just knowing that you need to figure it out, you're gonna talk to people differently, right? It's gonna create this new kind of thought, all these new things.
Sensitivity to asking questions.
Absolutely.
Curiosity.
So I would just say like, dude, go get out there. If you have friends, just go spend the day with them. Talk to people you don't know. Like, just like, you never know what experience is going to lead to a new idea that might bring you your purpose. And dude, I'm telling you, for my whole life, that's what's happened. It's never been like, I'm going to be this. It's like just all these instances that created a conversation that led to an idea and then led to me kind of going out and creating it.
I love that. So it's more of along the lines of, instead of sitting there thinking, that the clarity came from action, not thought.
For me,
Yeah.
right? Look, there's some people that are like so on it, they could sit in their room and know, I'm
Yeah.
just not that, right? Like
That's just how
I
it works for you.
struggled with not knowing what I wanted to be. And instead of like driving myself crazy, I just went, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. But that was always on the back of my mind. What is it going to be, right? Even with St. Archer, right? Like my wife, one day she was like, hey, look, you don't need to figure this out right now, but start thinking about what you're going to do after skating, right? And it was just that thought that I went, okay, cool. And then I went skating the next day and I saw Atiba, right?
Atiba Jefferson.
Atiba Jefferson. And he was talking about backpacks because we were sponsored by OGO and they let us go, right? And he's like, yeah, I'm trying to get some bags. And I went, dude, fuck, why are you going to get bags? Let's start a bag company. Because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I need to figure this shit out.
Right.
And that conversation led to Black Backpacks. And then like 3 days later, I think the conversation with Mike Mo, which led to Josh going, let's do beer. I don't know if I ever would have said that if Jen wouldn't have said, just start thinking, just put it in the back of your mind. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, for me, it's just like, shit, man, like put it in the back of my mind, have conversations, idea's going to spark, and then executing on it's a whole nother idea though, right?
Yeah,
it's like, that's
yeah.
a whole nother thing.
Different
But for
conversations.
me, the hard part's always been the idea.
Okay, nice. And then the inner skater in me, because as a kid, believe it or not, I used to watch a lot of your video parts, man. For a long time, you were my favorite pro skateboarder. I remember watching Skate More. You did like a pop shove it nose grind on that rail I was telling you about, that pink rail by my house. So I've always wanted to ask you and other pros I looked up to, when you grew up skating, right, and you would see like crazy tricks or crazy rail grinds, right, other people would see it and go, oh my God, that's crazy. What is the mental process of like how you approach it to where, like I'm sure you've even seen photos of yourself doing tricks and you're like, how the hell did I do that? Like what the hell was I? So what's that transition like? What's going through your mind mentally as to your approach into how to learn those tricks?
So
Like tricks that you're scared of, things that you never thought you could do. Is it just sort of flirting with it enough, or what was it?
Well, dude, yeah. So repetition creates confidence, right?
Right.
The more you do it, the more confident you are, right? And so I would just like, if I wanted to do something that was scary, I would just basically practice it until I knew I had it as good as I was going to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to the spot, it was like I had to create a game for myself, right? Because I was scared of everything I did.
Right.
Right. So
you
like,
wouldn't consider yourself a natural on a board.
no way, dude.
Yeah.
No, I willed this shit, dude. Like for real.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I just like got to the point where I was like, I think so obsessive with things that like I feel like I basically squeezed every bit of talent I had to like grow a brand off of. Right. I was not the like natural do this shit with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
And then especially like skating rails, like my friend Van was like incredible at rails. And like I just wanted to be as good as him and I was scared of him. So it was
Right.
like it became this like battle with myself to overcome the fear. And it was a process, especially in the beginning, dude. I'd have to roll up to a rail 45, 55 times. Stop, next one, stop, next one. And there'd be one try where I was just able to go.
Yeah.
Right? No clue why. And then you do that long enough and the 50 tries become 40 tries of roll.
Gotcha,
become
yeah.
30 tries of roll until before you know it, I can board slide a 20 stair rail with only 2 roll-ups, right?
Gotcha,
It's just being very repetitive.
So
with
what
it.
you lacked in natural talent, you made up for in just sheer time, just putting the time
Dude,
in.
absolutely. And even like Eric, like Eric's like,
Eric Bork, yeah.
yeah, like he was one of the first pros I started skating with, and he's kind of similar to me in a sense of like we weren't like just spewing talent. We were just like, I think more driven than everyone. But like, dude, I did this seriously every single day, all day long, no breaks for seriously 20 years. Even as a pro, every single day.
Every single day.
Every single day.
Wow.
So it was like, I think I was just so like, kind of like stuck on this, like where can I take this? That it was just, I got everything that I could possibly get out of it.
Yeah, and you brought up Eric Bork. He's your co-founder, partner with Ovni Intelligence.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that before we wrap up here?
Yeah. So Eric, it's funny, man, he left skateboarding at such a young age, and he had to go through, I think, what I'm going through now back then, but much more differently.
Because he was
right?
a pro skater then, too.
He was a pro skateboarder then, yeah. And I kind of watched him try a lot of things, right? Went into corporate world, did that for years, went through starting a company. I've watched this like kind of progression
You
with
saw what
him.
he did, and you're like, oh no, I don't want to do that.
Not like that, but like, dude, I watched
Yeah.
it happen for him, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All the way from like him being a pro skateboarder, working this job, owning a home, back at his mom's house, living on the couch broke,
Right.
into like learning something, creating a company. Like I've watched him go from like top to bottom and then back up, right? And it was like seeing that along with like him being on this path of like, really, I think he wanted to head towards what OVNI is, and me going through this like time of not knowing what to do. Dude, I was playing around with everything. And I was playing around with the online learning site.
Right.
And he was going to do that as well. So like we just kind of connected, and we were like, dude, why are we doing two separate things? Like, why don't we just put them together? So we started working together on it. But I think like OVNI, to me, like I love OVNI. I'm involved with it, but I think OVNI is like what he's meant to do. And it's like his path and dream. So
awesome.
it's like cool to like watch him kind of do this and like me kind of connect and
Right,
you
yeah.
know.
What's the vision for OVNI Intelligence, and where can people find you guys?
So you can find us on Instagram, OVNI Intelligence, our website, ovniintelligence.com. Basically, we want to teach people, like Eric learned this by himself, didn't go to college, seriously on his mom's couch 4 years ago, and he learned everything himself to be able to create a company. And then shit, I mean, he's making more money than I'm making right now.
That's
right?
amazing, yeah.
And so like we want to create basically a platform for people to go and learn rather than go to school. I mean, I know I'm biased to it. I didn't go to school, but like it's you know,
It's a model of the past.
it's a model of the past, right?
Right.
You're in my eyes, the schooling system, we're going to see such a massive shift.
I agree, yeah.
And like
to the online
I'm
platforms.
excited to be a part of like the new generation where it's headed. And that's really what it is, like try to help people do things on their own.
Awesome. So
make
specialized courses on certain trades and whatnot.
Exactly, instead of going in debt and, you know,
Yeah.
leaving school with like no more knowledge than like
Yeah,
if you would have just started something yourself and failed.
exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Or coming out of college still having no clue what you want to do, where you can go online and specialize
like
on
I would have
exactly
been
what you
that
wanna
guy
do.
though, for real. I would have went to school not knowing what to do,
Yeah.
left with like a degree, still had no clue what to do,
Yeah.
started a company, probably failed or had to figure out, and that would have been my schooling, is actually starting the company,
Yeah, and the
right?
company probably wouldn't have been a St. Archer, right?
No way, dude, no.
That's awesome.
No.
So looking back on your career as we wrap up here, people that might look up to you or, you know, love what you're doing in this space, what would be your best advice to people out there who are trying to find their thing, find their passion? Maybe they're stuck in life, maybe they're in a great place, maybe not. What have you learned from all the cumulative wisdom that you picked up traveling the world, living your dream, the ups and the downs? If Mikey Taylor could condense his best wisdom to people to find their path into 60 seconds or so, what would it be?
Shit.
Pressure's on, Mikey.
What a good question, man. Fuck. Where do I even begin? I would say, for me, it's, dude, for me in particular, I wasn't so scared of being able to make money. I was always scared about doing it for money and having no fulfillment or enjoyment out of it. So I've always tried to do things that I enjoyed so much, and then the money kind of followed.
Yeah. And skating was an example of that early on.
And skating
yeah.
was an example of it, right? So like, dude, I would say like, one, there's so many different ways to learn now. There's essentially nothing holding you back to becoming what you want. You just need to recognize that, like, don't be your own worst nightmare, right? I think a lot of us hold ourselves back from even being anything because we're so scared of failing at it or not figuring it out. It's like, dude, reflect on yourself, figure out any way that's gonna hold you back, get rid of it, move forward, and just like, dude, try. You know what I'm saying? Like, That's
Don't
what
get
I
in
would.
your own way.
No, absolutely not.
And I think skateboarding taught you that, right? I mean, what would you say skateboarding taught you in terms of trial and error?
Seriously, the biggest takeaway I have from skateboarding
Yeah.
is the process of through what we go through to get a trick or to even learn a trick, right? It is 10-to-1 failure over, probably more than that. It's
Yeah,
probably 100-to-1
Right.
failure over succeeding, right? And I think like trying a trick for so long every day and failing to land it once kind of brought this sense of like, if I'm gonna go do something, I'm gonna get my ass beat over and over and over until I achieve it.
Until I get to
And
the
that just
finish line.
became normal for me, right? So I was no longer scared of messing up or losing something. It just became very natural that I have to do that to get where I wanna go.
You learn how to do whatever it takes.
Absolutely, and I think that was probably the biggest takeaway for me from skating.
I love that, my man. And so before we wrap up the interview, we always play a game called First Things First.
Here we go.
So it's basically, I rifle off 10 words or phrases.
Okay.
You tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind.
I love that.
Got it?
Yep.
The only rule is that you can't repeat yourself twice.
Great.
Got it?
Okay.
All right. First, OVNI intelligence.
Knowledge.
St. Archer.
Special.
Skateboarding.
Passion.
Your entire career.
Hard.
Real estate.
Longevity.
Failure.
Often.
Your family.
Can I say one word or can it be a phrase?
Either or.
Purpose.
Rejection.
Common.
Passion.
Life.
And the last one, you ready? Mikey Taylor's legacy.
God, that's a fucking good one, man. Long way to go.
I love that. Well, thanks so much for sharing your
Thank
wisdom,
you.
Mikey.
Thank you.
You guys can check out the iTunes version in the link below. We'll see you guys next time. And as always, live strong, live with passion.
If you guys enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that subscribe button right now, because every week we bring you the very best in personal development content, interviews, and insight to help inspire you to take your life and your dreams and make them a reality. And also, if you want to know how to book dream guests the same way I have, you can check the link below for my top 3 secrets. So if you have a podcast or a show or whatever it is and you want to collaborate with them, if you click that link below, I'll give you those top 3 secrets to help you get in touch with anybody. And also, don't forget that The Passionate Few is available on media platforms as well. So you can subscribe to the podcast. And until next time, thank you for being one of the passionate few.